What's about to happen might embarrass my wife Charlene and her little lover, Howard. I won't stand for a cheating wife. As we got closer to my house, my plan was ready to go. It was going to be a tough afternoon for Charlene and Howard. You just don't mess with Bubba. Let me fill you in on how we ended up in this situation. I'm Bubba Clarence Jones, but everyone better call me Bubba. If someone calls me Clarence, well, let's just say they know better. Charlene and I have been married for 20 years, and we're both 42. We've been together since we were 12, high school sweethearts. I was the football team captain, and Charlene was the head cheerleader, the perfect couple. We got married right after high school and live in a mid-sized town in the heart of Texas oil country. I work as a roustabout with a drilling company, and Charlene is a stay-at-home mom. We had a couple of kids early on. Charlene is a stunning woman, tall at about 5 foot 10 inches. I love her long legs, especially the way she wraps them around me. We started having sex in high school, and though it was awkward at first, we soon figured out how to please each other. After 2 kids in 3 years, we decided to stop, especially after Charlene had a tough time with a second delivery. I got a vasectomy to ease our worries. I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty good in bed. I've seen Charlene experience mind-blowing orgasms that make her scream. Of course, she does the same for me. Even after all these years together, we still do that, which makes it so hard for me to figure why she cheated on me. After our kids entered junior high, Charlene decided she wanted to get a job. She went to a junior college to become a paralegal. Then, she got a job with a local law firm that deals with oil and gas leases and other oil-related stuff. A couple of years before that, I started my own business, a company preparing oil well sites. There wasn't much competition in Texas, and my business took off quickly. We made good money, so we moved out of our trailer and built a nice house in a good neighborhood. We're doing well financially, and Charlene really likes her job. Because my business works in Texas, New Mexico, and part of Louisiana, I have to travel sometimes. But I never worried about Charlene while I was away. She thinks the world of me, but I guess she got an urge she couldn't resist. About 4 months ago, Charlene's law firm hired a guy right out of law school. He was young, good-looking, but married with 2 small kids. His name was Howard Bishop. Charlene kept talking about how smart and wonderful he was. I met him at the firm's Christmas party last month. He seemed to think highly of himself and treated me like some rough oil worker. The truth is, I could buy and sell him anytime. Charlene was drinking and stayed close to him all night. She danced a lot with him, and I could tell his wife wasn't happy. I thought Charlene was just drunk, so I let it go. Besides, when we got home, she was really into it. She was so eager I could hardly keep up, but I did. I asked her if she had a crush on the young lawyer. She just laughed and said I was crazy. She told me I was the only man she had feelings for. According to her, I'm the only one she's ever been with and ever wants to be with. She was confident that I'd never cheat on her, and she knows I wouldn't tolerate her cheating on me. It was about 2.5 weeks ago, while I was away for work, that one of my workers, Earl, called me. He said, "Bubba, I'm in the alley behind your house, and there's a fancy BMW parked near your place. Did you buy a BMW, Bubba?" I replied, "No way, Earl. You know I only drive pickup trucks." Earl thought it was strange and said it looked fishy, especially since Charlene's friend parked in the back. I asked him about the car's color, and he said it was red. Suddenly, I remembered the young lawyer leaving the party in a red car. I told Earl to keep an eye out and call me if anything suspicious happened. Earl followed my instructions, used binoculars, and about 45 minutes later, he called back. He said, "Bubba, I hate to say this, but a fancy-looking young guy came out of your back door. I could see Charlene inside wearing her robe, and it's the middle of the afternoon. That woman, if she's fooling around with that guy, she'll regret it. He won't be worth much when I'm done with him. You don't mess with Bubba." I got home the next day and drove to Midland to a spy store I heard about. I needed evidence before doing anything. I bought a bedroom spy cam disguised as an alarm clock. I figured Charlene wouldn't even notice it. It worked on motion, so it would capture whatever happened. I also got some software that lets me hear Charlene's phone calls on my phone. When her phone rings or she calls someone, I can listen in. I don't know how it works, but I just want to know what she's up to. The camera I bought records anything in the room as soon as someone walks in. If they do it again, I'll have proof. When I got home that evening, I tried to see if Charlene would be interested in being intimate. Not that I wanted more, but I just wanted to see her reaction. She said she was too tired and not in the mood. I think I got my answer. On Sunday night, I said I was going out of town for a couple of days. She acted disappointed, but I wasn't sure if it was genuine. I kissed her goodbye. The next morning, right after I left, she called Howard. She told him I was out of town again, and they planned to meet that afternoon, with him parking in the alley. As much as I hated to do it, I had to let them go through with it. I needed proof. It was starting to hit me that my marriage might be over. I went to a job site about 100 miles away and spent the night in a motel. I got drunk and found myself crying as I tried to sleep. The next day, I came home while Charlene was at work. I checked the recording device to see what it captured. I hoped for the best but expected the worst. I downloaded the recording to my laptop, and it showed Howard and Charlene in our bed. The video quality was clear, and I could clearly identify both of them. I didn't think Howard was as good as me, but she seemed to enjoy it. It was now obvious my marriage was over, but not before a little payback. I could hear their conversation as they were getting dressed. "Charlene, you are one hell of a good fuck. I wish my wife could fuck like you. She won't even give me a blowjob." Howard said, "Thank you, Howard. You're not bad yourself." Charlene said, "Yeah, I gave you a good one, baby. I bet it was better than that redneck husband of yours." Howard said, "Now, Howard, don't you ever say anything about Bubba? I love Bubba with all my heart, and he is one hell of a lover. He is a good husband, a good father, and makes me very happy," she said. "Then why did you agree to allow me into your bedroom?" Howard said, "Bubba and I have been together since we were 12. I've been fucking him since we were 16. I've never been with anyone but Bubba. I guess I was just curious, Howard, and you were so charming and attentive to me. I guess I just had this itch, and I wanted you to scratch it. You are very educated and sophisticated, and I wanted to see what it was like. Also, you're 12 years younger, yet you still find me attractive and sexy," she said. "Well, you are one hot lady, Charlene, even though you are older. How long will we keep this up?" He said, "I know one thing. Bubba can never find out. If he does, he would kill us both. So I think this should be it." She said, "Come on, Charlene, just one more time. Let's do it one last time when he leaves again. Then we will never do it again. The itch will have been scratched and I will never ask again. Unless, of course, you ask me. Remember, I am married too, and I know my wife would take me to the cleaners if she found out." Howard said, "I don't know, Howard. I hate to risk it for very long, but I guess one last farewell fuck would be okay. I'm sure Bubba will have to leave again later this week. If he does, then we will make this last one a good one," she said. They left the room and the camera shut off. So it was just an itch that needed scratching. They weren't in love or anything. It was just a case of lust. I've had a few itches over the years, but never once did I even come close to scratching. They were about to find out. "You don't fuck with Bubba." I went back to the shop and waited for some of my boys to get in. I needed some help on this. I had an idea that even amazed myself. I called Earl and told him to get Leon and Tiny and meet me at the shop. These were 3 big oil men. Tiny was the biggest. He was about 6'6", weighing about 320 pounds. They were also very loyal to me and would do anything for me. When they arrived, I sat them down and explained everything. They couldn't believe Charlene could do that to me. After I told them about the videos, they all jumped up saying they wanted to see it. Bullshit. You assholes just want to see Charlene naked. Just take my word. She did something with that fancy lawyer she should not have done and will soon wish she hadn't. Boys will be boys, I guess. After explaining what I wanted them to do, they left laughing about how much fun this was going to be. That night, I tried to be as normal as I could. I even made a move on Charlene. I just wanted to see how she reacted. Just like the last time, she said she wasn't in the mood. She probably was worried I would notice something. I told her I had to leave overnight again day after tomorrow. She just shrugged and said, "Okay." The next day, I drove to Midland to meet with a lawyer I knew about. We drafted the divorce papers and prepared the lawsuit against Charlene's employers. His representative would be there the next day when we surprised Charlene and Howard. Everything was set. Let's see if they have that one final fling. That night, I was very quiet. I guess I felt pretty sad about the end of my marriage. Charlene even asked if anything was wrong. I just told her I wasn't feeling real good. So, I turned around and slept. So that brings me back to where I started this story. Everything was in place. Earl and Leon were in my truck with me. Earl had the rope, duct tape, and 2 sturdy chairs as I instructed. Tiny was in the company truck and trailer with the giant forklift in tow. Tiny was a great forklift operator. I drove by the alley to make sure Howard was there. Sure enough, there was his BMW near the back of my house. I instructed Tiny to park down the alley, then bring his forklift to Howard's car. He was to move his forklift in place, then wait for my signal. I drove back to the front of my house but did not park directly in front. I got out of the truck. Earl and Leon followed with the chairs, rope, and duct tape. When we got to the front door, I called Tiny and told him to proceed with his part of the plan. While we made our way inside the house, Tiny used his forklift to carry Howard's little BMW down to the community pool at the end of the block. It had a gate just wide enough for the forklift to fit through. Tiny used his bolt cutters to cut the lock, then placed Howard's car in the pool. Meanwhile, we made our way upstairs to my bedroom. As we approached, we could hear noises coming from inside the room. As I peeked through the half-closed door, I saw Charlene riding Howard cowgirl style. I had caught them right in the middle of doing it. I signaled to Earl and Leon to handle Howard first. They were supposed to tie him to the chair and tape his mouth shut. After securing Howard, Charlene would be next. We barged into the room yelling. Charlene screamed, "Bubba!" "Oh God, no. Baby, I can explain." "Bubba, I am so sorry. Please don't hurt Howard." They tied Howard up as I told them. Then, they tied Charlene to the other chair but didn't tape her mouth. I knew they were staring at my naked wife, but whatever. She won't be my wife much longer. They took Howard to the back of my truck and set him up in the pickup bed. Then they secured his chair to the headache rack. I pulled up a chair and sat in front of Charlene. She was crying and kept saying, "Bubba, I'm so sorry. I did a stupid thing, and I'm so sorry." I asked her, "Charlene, I just want to know why. Am I a bad husband? Am I a bad lover? Why would you do this to me, to us, and to our family?" Tears rolled down my cheeks. She replied, "Bubba, I know this looks bad, but I still love you so much. Howard was just a little fling that meant nothing. This was the last time we were going to get together. I swear, I was just curious about what someone like him would be like in bed. He made me feel good about myself, but he is nowhere near the lover you are." I said, "Charlene, it may have just been a little fling to you, but you've hurt me pretty bad. We've been together a long time, and you had to go ruin everything for a little fling." She pleaded, "No, Bubba, you have to forgive me. I will do anything. And it was just an itch I needed to scratch. I'm sorry you found out. I never wanted to hurt you." Charlene said, "I've had an itch every now and then, but I didn't scratch. I've always been faithful to you. I've always worshipped the ground you walk on. Then you go and mess around with some younger, smooth-talking lawyer, and in our own bed. I'm sorry, Charlene, but this is unforgivable." I could see Earl and Leon waiting outside the door. Charlene was still crying and pleading with me as I put the duct tape on her mouth. We carried her downstairs and placed her in the back of the truck next to Howard. I secured her to the headache rack, then looked at Howard. I could tell he was scared. I said to both of them, "You are about to experience some of the humiliation I feel right now. I don't know if you ever read or saw the movie, The Scarlet Letter, but you are about to experience it firsthand." I looked right at Howard and said, "You should know better than to mess around with another man's wife. I don't think you will ever do it again after today." I placed a sign around both of their necks. His said, "I cheated on my wife." Hers said, "I cheated on my husband." I put a big sign on both sides of the truck. It said "Adulterers" painted in red. We drove downtown, and as we drove around I started honking. People were pointing. Some looked horrified, others were laughing, and some were disgusted by the display. We pulled up to the law firm offices where Howard and Charlene worked. I honked until several people came out, including the senior partner. I got out of my truck and walked over to him. "I thought you might want to see what 2 of your employees were doing this afternoon during their lunch break." At the same time, the representative of the law firm I hired walked over and served him with my lawsuit. He then served Charlene with divorce papers. Of course, she was tied up, so I untied one arm so she could accept them. I then tied it back and told Charlene I would hold them until we got to her parents' house. She shook her head, trying to get me to let her go. The senior partner walked over to Howard. Howard and Charlene yelled, "You're fired!" We then drove to Howard's house. You should have seen the look on his face when we pulled in. I got out of the truck and walked to the door. When his wife answered, I explained everything and handed her a copy of the video. There were 2 small children behind her. I felt sorry for her, but she needed to see her husband for what he was. Leon and Earl took him out of the pickup and placed him in the yard. She walked over with tears in her eyes and slapped him. She gave Charlene a dirty look and went back inside. Right before she walked in, I told her that I think Howard's car slipped out of gear in the alley behind my house and rolled into the swimming pool down at the end of the block. Howard was still sitting there when we drove away. We left with Charlene still in the back of the truck and drove to her parents' house. I went to the door, but Monroe and Mildred were already standing there. I explained the whole situation and offered them video evidence if they wanted. I made sure they knew I was not fooling around, and Charlene was at fault. They looked at their daughter, then just shook their heads. Monroe said, "Bubba, we are so sorry our daughter did this to you. You have been a good husband to her and a great son-in-law to us. Is there any way you might forgive Charlene? I know she still loves you." "Sorry, Monroe. There's no way I could ever trust her again. I've tried to be as good a husband as a man can be for her, and this is how she repays me. I watched her on video having sex with Howard in our own bed. Then I catch them red-handed in our own bed. No, I can never forgive that." Mildred said, "We understand, Bubba, and I guess we don't blame you." I untied Charlene and led her over to her parents. I took the tape off her mouth and she said, "Please, Bubba, I am so sorry. I promise I will never do anything like that ever again. I realize now just how stupid it was, and for nothing really. He wasn't nearly as good a lover as you. I will do anything if you will just give me another chance." She was begging. She did look cute standing there naked, pleading with me to take her back. I almost gave in, but then remembered, "You don't mess with Bubba." "Sorry, Charlene. I just can't. I'm leaving you here with your parents. You can come get all your stuff from the house tomorrow when I'm at work. I will be in touch about the divorce. I will split everything with you, but I keep all my business. Don't try to contest anything, or that video will go viral." I left Charlene with her parents. She accepted everything in the divorce petition. I kept the house, and Charlene stayed with her parents. I guess I was pretty hard on her, but she made a big mistake and paid for it. I eventually dropped the lawsuit against her employer. I just didn't want to deal with it. I was mainly trying to make a point. 1 year later, I really began to miss Charlene. I had gotten over all my anger and humiliation. I didn't really date anyone, and I really wasn't interested. I had some intimate encounters a few times, but nothing serious. Mostly it was on out-of-town business trips, and were one-night stands. Mildred called me up and wanted to have lunch and talk. I agreed because I wanted to find out about Charlene. It had been a long time since I even talked to her, and when I did, all she wanted to do was apologize. Mildred told me that Charlene was still living with them. She had found a new job with a couple of lawyers in a nearby town. It was a couple of old men who needed good legal assistance. She loved the new job. Mildred told me Charlene refused to even date anyone. She had people asking her out all the time, but she refused. She was still hoping I might want her back someday. I told Mildred about how I missed Charlene and had forgiven her. It took me a while, but I finally came to grips with everything. I told her, "Now, Mildred, I am not promising anything, but I would like to call Charlene and maybe get together for a drink or something." I never actually gave her much of a chance to talk after I caught them. I was just too angry and hurt by what she did. Mildred said, "Bubba, that would be great if you could just sit down with her and listen to what she wants to tell you. She knows she made a huge mistake, and she paid a price for it." I said, "Okay, Mildred. I think I finally can sit down and hear her out. I will give her a call." I called Charlene that afternoon and set up a time to meet with her that evening at a local bar we always used to go to. Charlene was pretty excited. Mildred called me a little later to thank me and tell me how excited Charlene felt about finally getting together with me. I arrived a little early, got myself a beer, and grabbed us a little table away from everything where we could talk. I did a double take when Charlene walked in. She looked fantastic, dressed very nicely. She had lost some weight and grew her hair out like she did in high school. Every man in the place turned and stared at her as she came in. I walked over to greet her. "Hello, Charlene. I must say, you look so beautiful. It is good to see you." I gave her a hug and she held on for about 10 seconds with her arms around my neck. There were tears in her eyes when she said, "It's really nice to see you too, Bubba. You look pretty good yourself. I can't tell you how excited I was that you called." We made small talk for a few minutes. Then Charlene said, "Bubba, I have spent the past year trying to figure out why I did what I did. I have no excuses, and I have accepted responsibility for what I did. You don't know how many nights I've cried myself asleep because of the pain and humiliation I caused our family, and the fact that I lost the man I love most in my life. I had no feelings for Howard. Yes, he was a smooth talker. He told me things I liked to hear. I'm convinced he did manipulate me in a way I will never understand." She was crying a little bit now, so she stopped to get a Kleenex out of her purse. She went on, "I love you, Bubba, more than anything in this world. I would give anything to turn back the clock. I know the kids were pretty mad at me at first, but they soon realized how much I regretted my mistake and have forgiven me. I think what I need most is to hear you say that you can forgive me. If you can, then I will step aside and let you move on with your life. I was humiliated and so hurt by what you did. Watching a video of the woman I love with another man was tough. I was mad, which is why I punished both of you the way I did. I'm sorry for that. It might have been a bit much." I took a drink of beer and continued. "I eventually came to terms with everything and realized I could forgive you. I still love you, but I can never trust you. The image of you with that guy still haunts my nightmares." She was still crying and held my hand. I took her hand in mine and told her, "I really wanted to get back with you, but in another lifetime, and I wish that you remained faithful to me then." Tears rolled down my eyes. I got up and walked out. As I reached the door, I looked back and saw her with tears in her eyes. I lifted my hand and waved the final goodbye. It was hard. My heart ached, feeling like I had knives in it, but I had to do this. Let's hope she learned a lesson, but most of all, she learned you don't mess with Bubba.